Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We're glad you're here, and if you haven't done so already, invite you to stop by our welcome table after worship in Robinson Lounge so we can answer your questions and get to know you a little bit. Again, welcome all to our congregation. It is good to be together. And now we invite you to bring your attention and intention as we gather this morning in the name of love, in the spirit of love, in a vision of love, a love that is affirming of all, a love we remind one another of in times of fear and hurt, a love that is powerful enough to overcome hatred and cruelty. Our ideals of love are not what we always witness in our day-to-day lives, which sometimes feel lovelorn and love lost. The faith we hold beckons us that even in such time, love remains. It can be found within our next heartbeat, our next intake of breath. Beloveds, I invite us to feel our heartbeat. You might place a hand on your chest and to breathe together. And inhale and exhale. One more time, and inhale and exhale. Connected to beat, connected to breath, connected to one another, connected to love. Let us worship together.
He drew a circle that shut me out, but love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. Edwin Markham.
And now we invite you to join together in our unison affirmation printed in your order of service. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity does not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
Spirit of life, you who embrace the vastness of space and us along with it, be with us today. Hold us in our worry, our exhaustion, our grief. Keep us close as we sit with our truth, whatever that may be. Lead us to rest in the quiet, to find solace and renewal in this time of shifting light and dark. You whose arms open with the spinning galaxies, help us to make room, as you do, for all that is. Open our hearts to our loved ones, our neighbors, the beings with whom we share this planet. Lead us to reach out to others in compassion. Turn us toward one another in mercy, right relationship, and reconciliation. You who have seen the rising and setting of suns, of seasons, of civilizations, remind us of all that we have learned from the history of the world and from our own history. Give us the courage to face our mistakes and to repair them when possible. Help us understand our interdependence, our gravitational relatedness with all of the other spinning lives around us, and lead us to treat those relationships with care. In this space, filled with the people among us who shine like stars, this space, filled with the sparkle of love and care, we give thanks for this moment to be together. May our senses be open to the beauty of this day, this season, this world. We continue our contemplation for a moment in silence. Blessed be.
When I tell people I'm camping for vacation, they sometimes react with horror or sympathy. Oh, camping, you're so brave, they say. Or good for you, I couldn't do it. And they're not wrong about the downsides of camping. It's a lot of work. It takes almost a full day for my husband Scythe and I just to pack the car to brim with camping supplies and groceries, knowing that we'll inevitably forget something. It's hard to cook on a camp stove. There are bugs. There's dirt. It's difficult to sleep at night. And worst of all, you have to take a small hike down the block just to use the bathroom. But my family has been camping since I was about 8 years old, when my crazy parents camped with a baby, a toddler, a 5-year-old, and me for 3 weeks in Acadia National Park. In fact, my mother camped with us well into her 80s. The last time we camped with her was when she was first showing signs of dementia. And she called out at night, "This is terrible, what are we doing? Why are we here?" My brothers and I reassured her that she was with us and she was fine, but afterwards we couldn't help but laugh and admit that she had a good point. Why are we here? We've been camping for so long that the inconveniences don't bother us. My 2 brothers and Scythe and I each cook a meal, and one brother does double duty with breakfast. And glory, hallelujah, our grown kids and their partners voluntarily did the dishes this year, without help. We all eat together, and we share our food on one campsite, which we call the commune. When the tasks are done and everyone gathers around the campfire, out come the instruments. My brothers and 2 nephews play guitar. I brought my ukulele. My son Will had a harmonica. My brother's girlfriend brought a tambourine, and my nephew took out his saxophone. Everyone sang. It was a jamboree. We played through our entire repertoire of folk music from our childhood, rock from our teens, and even some original music. But while we see ourselves as a magical combination of the Partridge Family and the Von Trapps from The Sound of Music, not everyone was a fan. A park ranger came to our campsite and very politely asked us to tone it down one night. A neighbor made the same request less politely another night. We toned it down and quit early, but not without some huffing among the musicians. And just as not everyone is a fan of our music, not everyone in my family is a music maker or a camper. One of my 3 brothers hates camping and doesn't sing or play an instrument. He also happens to be on the other side of the fence politically from the rest of us. So we're not as close. We see each other on major occasions, and we have to find other opportunities to get together. I was heartened on our camping trip by another of our neighbors who stopped us as we passed her campsite to say that she really enjoyed our music. "Are you friends or family?" she asked. "Family," we replied. "Family," she said, "that's wonderful. I love the cooperation." I love the cooperation too. It reminds me of what I find here at UUCP, where I view you all as my fellow campers and music makers, even if you would never sleep in a tent and you can't sing a note. You are my people. But my non-singing, non-camping brother, and the camper who complained about our music, reminds me that not everyone is a camper, a music maker, or an appreciator of campsite jamborees. It's easy to feel connected to people who are just like you. Our values as UUs teach us the real task is to respect those who don't share your values or your songbook, and to find a way to connect with them too.
This story comes from a book called Love's Braided Dance by Norman Wiersbe. Wiersbe is a Christian theologian based at Duke University who has written quite a few books. It was supposed to be a short holiday, the last boating excursion of the season for Carmine and Rosaria Menna to join with 6 of their closest friends enjoying the pleasures of the sea. Their plan was to remain in sight of the coast of Lampedusa, their island home in the Mediterranean located between Italy and Tunisia. A luxurious evening swim and the gentle rocking of the boat had provided a good night's rest. The dawn promised a peaceful day to cruise and fish. But when Carmine emerged on deck, his peace was interrupted by the squawking sound of what he thought were seagulls. When his friends joined him, they said, "Something is screaming." It wasn't seagulls, it was people, hundreds of them, thrashing in the water and yelling with all their might, desperate for help. As Carmine steered the boat to the scene, he encountered the floating debris of a sunken vessel, along with discarded clothing and shoes. They saw the dead. They saw faces gasping and choking. How long had they been in the water? How long before they lost the energy to keep trying? Carmine thought, they're all drowning. I can't possibly save them all. His boat, the Galata, was built for 10 people. Neither Carmine nor his friends had any training in rescue, and they knew their strict laws against aiding illegal immigrants. Carmine and his friends eventually managed to pull 47 people on board, even though 368 people died. So many hands begged to be grasped, so many agonizing choices to be made. They were visibly sick and exhausted. Their bodies were covered with slime and diesel fuel, making them slippery. As more migrants were pulled on board, they risked capsizing the Galata, and no other boat stopped to help. Before, when Carmine had heard news reports about the migrant crisis, he often turned the radio off. He didn't speak badly of the migrants or complain about them, but he didn't visit them at the reception center either. Carmine was surprised by the visceral attachment he suddenly felt, pulling the first man aboard. He wanted to hug and comfort him like a protective parent. To this day, he has not forgotten the feel of the young man's hand in his, nor the power that flowed through his body as he reached out to grab hold of yet another person, wanting and willing each of them to survive. He says he never felt more alive in his life than at that very moment. His muscles tingled and his nerves sparked with energy. When the Coast Guard finally came, he could not understand the captain's order to stop the rescue. Nothing in him wanted to steer the Galata back to shore. Months later, Carmine said, "I can still feel the fingers of that first hand I seized, how they cemented into mine, bone grinding against bone, how they clamped down with such a grip that I saw the veins of his wrist pounding. My whole body shaking with the force of the hold as I pulled upwards and dragged the naked torso from the waves. It was the touch of another's hand and the feel of another's flesh that activated within him, the power he describes as transforming love." So that story talks about a connection that was made between Carmine and the refugee. My story is about a connection that was not made. Do you remember the start of the pandemic in 2020? Everything shut down so quickly. We had to stay indoors, protect our family, It was a shock to learn that the closings would not be just for a week or two, but for much longer, months, and maybe even more. I was helpless and maybe a bit scared. And of course, I wasn't as badly affected as those who could not stay home, the healthcare providers and those whose jobs required them to be out and about. All of us were isolated and cut off. But in those early times of the pandemic, there was one thing that made me optimistic. I was sure that this situation that affected all of us would provide the common sense understanding that we were all in it together. We would act to protect ourselves and each other, helping ourselves and each other not to get sick. We'd all wear masks. We'd all cooperate with school closures and meetings on Zoom. We'd order groceries online. Vaccines would come and we'd all take them. We would all work together, right? Because we were all in it together. Boy, was I wrong. I don't really understand why a sense of commonality and mutual help did not prevail. I know some of the reasons: conspiracy theories, blaming others for the problem, doubting the virus was really that serious, politicizing everything. But it was still obvious that even if there was a bit of truth in some of these things, we were still all in this together, and we all had to work to get out of it. That experience taught me a lot about the pressures in our culture that divide us. It was all someone else's fault. In the pandemic, it was the Chinese, or the liberals, or the so-called experts who insisted they knew more than we did about public health. And in the story from Norman Wiersbe about the cruise off the coast of Italy and finding refugees from Africa in danger, it was the very fear of those refugees infiltrating their country that prevented effective help to people who were drowning. The hidden message is that it's all about us and them, the other. The impulse to construct a sense of other is very strong, dominating other experiences. In a way, that's not too surprising. A very influential element of our culture is the individual. We each have agency. Each of us controls much of our success. We should decide what's best for us and not follow the crowd. Think of Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance. I read it in high school, and maybe you did too. That cultural mandate for individualism becomes even stronger in the 20th century and in the United States. I can't help but think of Ayn Rand. In her novels, the winners are those who are self-guided. They perceive that their success is due solely to their own actions. What they've accomplished, they've done themselves, not due to the help of anyone else. These were and are very popular assumptions. But I insist that these are just starting points with great limitations. While we do make personal decisions, in our Unitarian Universalist faith, we strongly recognize that we are all connected and interdependent. And that's what I want to talk about now. Even when we protect our individualism, we know we aren't solo actors. You can't be alone in religion. You can't be alone when you participate in the economy or learn about the ecosystem. In ecology, the relationships among species establish the environment, and we're connected with each other, both in our faith and in the larger world. It's common to think that we are connected through the internet with social media. You know, you can Google anything, and many of us have hundreds of friends on Facebook. We can join uncountable groups of people like us. So we're connected to the whole world, right? I am sure that this kind of connection is largely false. Does it foster deep relationship? Does it bring satisfaction? In the same book that the story of Carmine and Rosaria Mena connecting with migrants came from, Norman Wiersbe says that real connection needs resonance, which is a good addition to the theme of connection. Resonance is a shared joy, a commitment to mutuality. In music, check me out here, Sue. Resonance happens when the vibrations of one instrument increase the amplitude or fullness of the vibrations of another. And that's the same as in human interactions. Multiple things working together to make the combination better, more complete. People working together, each contributing to the whole. That's what makes connection. Wiersbe gives us a good example. He presents the concept of Ubuntu in African Bantu culture, which says that a person becomes a person by the actions of other persons. People need each other to be whole. One's humanity is bound up with the humanity of others. I am because we are. That's a powerful concept, and it pairs up with the idea that you teach that our freedom depends on the freedom of others. None of us is free until all of us are free. I'm not a whole person until you are as well, until all of us are. Robin Wall Kemmerer's book, The Serviceberry, includes a story about abundance in a hunter-gatherer community in Brazil. A hunter brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. He could have smoked or dried the extra meat and saved it for another time. Instead, he called for the village to feast. He shared the bounty with everyone he could. A Western anthropologist asked the hunter why he didn't store the meat to use in times of scarcity and need. "Store my meat?" replied the hunter. "I store my meat in the belly of my brother." In his culture, the idea of wealth doesn't focus on how much one accumulates, but on how much one shares. The economic unit is the group, not the individual. Not me, but us. The underlying goal is to assure adequate resources for all, a sense that I have all I need and all of us can flourish. Like the potlatch in Pacific Northwest Native American cultures, a person's status is enhanced not by how much they own, but by how much they share, how generous they are with their neighbors. The sharing gives them higher status and greater regard, not unlike the status that wealthy people in our culture receive. Beyond status, the other element here is reciprocity, a general practice of mutuality, of growing the common good. When times are good, I share with you. And when my family experiences hard times, you will share with me. Kimmerer's book, The Serviceberry, centers around a simple quote: "All flourishing is mutual." She uses the serviceberry itself to describe a mutual ecosystem where many species thrive from the berry: fruit, birds, trees, and other creatures. Reciprocity rather than accumulation. In human society, there are countless examples of mutual benefit as well. We need to be cooperative more than competitive, finding ways to put our resources together for communal prosperity. We need to love each other back. Wiersbe's Love Braided Dance celebrates the idea of a hopeful economy, one that respects the relationships among people and with the natural world. It means taking enough, but not too much, and keeping resources available for others and for future generations, while expanding resources that can be sustainably produced. If this mutual nourishing is the central priority, the focus is on us rather than me, and there is less competition and greater cooperation. Hope is born, Wiersbe suggests, when people come together and nurture each other and their shared places. To live fully is to engage with others. This mutual commitment leads to a greater understanding of the needs of others. We can learn their stories and share our own. We can be intentional in reaching out to persons who are different from us, different in so many ways. MAGA-type people, of course, but also many other categories. Those who are new to the United States, those who have mental or physical disabilities, those whose sexual orientation or gender identity doesn't match ours, those who enjoy access to guns. I can't list all the categories, but those who are different and need to be included in this sense of mutuality that gives us a greater chance of long-term prosperity. I know this ideal is far away, but we can get closer, step by step, one person and one brave reaching out at a time. I come back to the two stories I began with. The fear that prevented us from coming together during the pandemic, and the engagement that Carmine and Rosario found when they saw the drowning refugees. We must not be scared. We should reach out to others as much as we can. Carmine and Rosaria had not thought much of the refugees before they encountered them, but they found their lives transformed by the experience. Carmine felt a visceral attachment to the first man he pulled out of the water, a power throughout his body as he grasped another's hand and urged him to survive and thrive. All flourishing is mutual. What we need most is the commitment of belonging, relationship, and common purpose. What we need most is to love each other back. Blessed be. As we end our time together today in spiritual community, may we depart this sacred space, knowing that blessings shall follow us all the days of our lives if we live in and return to right relationships, if we extend grace and forgiveness to ourselves and others, if we behold mercy as a spiritual superpower, if we emanate the greater love that holds us close, may our lives radiate the blessings we have been given. May kindness and compassion fall gently upon us. And may there be peace in the world. May it begin with us. Go in peace.